Well, boys, some days are better than others. I tell you guys that a lot. I say that there's a lot of special episodes here on Yammie Noob, but this is truly a special episode. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Yammie Noob. Today is a glorious video. It is the first ride and impression on this, the Kawasaki ZH2. If you guys missed our reveal, this is our brand new expert bike giveaway. Yes, you heard that right. This is a giveaway motorcycle. Hit the link down below to yammienoob.co, register for free on the website, and then select one of our packages for our subscriptions. If you select the high horsepower package, you'll get automatically entered to win this motorcycle. You can also drill down on your own tier on the expert bike giveaway, get entered to win this one. You'll get access to our Discord, all kinds of cool perks on the website, and the automatic entries to win this bike. If none of that sounds appealing to you, you can always get a piece of merch and get entered to win. You get a piece of merch, and then at checkout, you get an email, and then you can select your subscription in our Google form, and that gets you entered to win. I just wanted to tell you guys before we get started, just so you don't miss out on this amazing motorcycle. And it is an amazing motorcycle. Before you guys watch this video, and we're going to get into all the specs and all the cool stuff about this bike, but I just want to tell you right now, I adore the ZH2. I never thought I'd like a bike like this so much, but geez, this is a sweet ride. I love this thing. I seriously am head over heels with this thing. If you're to ask Spite or Josh or Whitney up at the shop, I never shut up about the ZH2, and I definitely have taken it home a couple of times because I think it is just a fantastic motorcycle. So as many of you are aware, Kawasaki has been making the H2 line of bikes for a little bit of time now. They started with the H2 and the H2R back in 2015. The H2R was their $55,000 non-road legal supercharged 300 plus horsepower crazy bike. And then you see something like this and you're like, oh sweet, Kawi just took off the fairings and then gave us the H2, right? Well, not exactly, and I think it's all the better for it. So this machine is actually really different from the H2. This is not simply an H2 without fairings. This motorcycle actually has its own frame right here. So this frame is not shared with the other H2 bikes. You won't see this trellis frame on the H2SX or the H2 or the H2R. The engine, however, is the same architecture. This is the same supercharged 998cc inline-4 engine, producing 197 horsepower and 101 foot-pounds of torque at 8,200 RPMs in this configuration. The standard H2 makes about 240, and the H2SX makes like 215 or 220 or something like that. So this is down on power, supposedly, but I think it's all the better for it because of this ergonomics package. So as you can see here, this motorcycle features bars. Instead of clip-ons, instead of anything like that, it actually has bars. It has standard suspension here, not electrically adjustable or electronic suspension or anything like that, which is kind of a benefit in my opinion. It makes it a more traditional and standard motorcycle, which means that with some of the paring back of features on this thing, it costs $17,000 on the showroom floor. Now, some of you might say, geez, Yammie, that is a lot of money for a motorcycle, but I would like to posit that this thing actually makes a great value for money case for itself when you compare it against the likes of a Street Fighter V4 or a KTM 1290R, those kinds of motorcycles. This thing is every bit as sophisticated and advanced as those motorcycles, and yet it retains that classic Japanese budget-friendly-ish option, right? So as you can see here, this motorcycle comes equipped with a mid-spec Brembo. This is not a top-of-the-line Brembo caliper. These brakes are slightly smaller, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have stopping power, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't handle well either. We're going to get into the handling and everything else on this motorcycle, but I just want to let you guys know that it actually does handle pretty well. It weighs in at about 527 pounds ready to ride, so it is almost Busa-sized, and that I think is a good thing. I think it's good that this thing is hefty, it feels weighty, it doesn't feel flighty, because with this amount of torque, you actually want a motorcycle that's a bit more weighed down. Further along here, you can definitely see this gigantic emissions regulated exhaust here. We are definitely going to get rid of that. We actually have Brock's Performance providing a full exhaust system for this motorcycle, so I'm very excited to try that out. But one thing you'll notice on this bike, as I mentioned with the green trellis frame and some of the other stuff, is this Tsugomi styling that Kawasaki has gone for, which I've never been a fan of. And I actually, when I saw photos of this motorcycle when it first came out, I thought it was so ugly, guys. I thought it looked hideous. I didn't get it. But man, in person, I don't know, it has such presence. It has such attitude. It's got these big haunches. And one of my favorite features is this ram air scoop right here and this asymmetrical fairing, because right along here, as you can see, this is actually a giant induction pipe for the supercharger that lives right there. How cool is that? Such a cool motorcycle. And before I rode this thing, I really thought that the supercharger was just a big gimmick. I thought it was like, oh, this is, Kawasaki slapped on a supercharger on this thing. What's the point? Just get a bigger engine, blah, blah, blah. But no, I was very wrong. Very, very wrong about this thing. What do you guys say we turn it on and get a sense for it? But before we do, just want to quickly mention, full color TFT here, Kawasaki, traction control, quick shifter, IMU, all the cool stuff. Couple mode selections here. You got rain, road, and sport. I've pretty much kept it in sport the entire time since I bought it. It's got cruise control, which is a really nice feature on this motorcycle. I think that's pretty cool. Fully adjustable levers, pretty awesome stuff. Let's get it here in neutral and hear the startup. Classic Japanese inline 4, but with a special flavor with this supercharger. See if you guys can hear it. Very, very cool. Such a sweet ride. All right, swinging a leg over the Kawasaki ZH2. The seat height is relatively high. I think if you were a smaller statured rider, you might struggle with this thing. I'm about 5'11", almost 6 foot-ish with my boots on. And you guys can tell I have a slight bend in my leg when I'm on this motorcycle. Seat height's about 32.7 inches, so it is a substantial full-size sport naked motorcycle. But the reach of the bars, as I mentioned, with these handlebars is really amenable. I'm sitting here. Foot pegs are not too high up. On a normal sport bike, you'd expect them to be a little bit more high, like almost like that, but pretty easy going foot pegs here. Handlebars feel really nice. For me, this motorcycle feels pretty much perfectly sized, and I really, really dig it. Without further ado, what do you guys say we get this thing out on the road and talk through some of the riding characteristics and just what Kawai's done here with this phenomenal motorcycle? Let's get it out on the road, shall we? Cruising to a slow stop here. Rear brake feels awesome. We're just gonna take a quick little left here and lay into the power just a teensy bit to show you guys just what this thing is capable of. Oh, I mean, it's just constant fluttery noises, constant front wheel lift, and then you come cruising to a stop and it's no different than just like a 650 or something. It's amazing. It's so cool. This motorcycle doesn't really feel that big. I love the cockpit here. Really cool TFT. This lookout from the dash here and sitting on this bike is so sweet. Such a sweet bike to sit on. You guys can probably tell I really like this thing. Really, really like it. This is gonna be a fun video, and I'm excited to talk through some of the specs once we get rolling here. Pulling out onto the highway here as we normally do. I'm not even going to mention it. This motorcycle obviously has plenty of highway passing power and plenty of ability to sit on the highway and do what you need to do. The thing that might shock you is if you don't get on the boil on this bike, if you just cruise around with it as if it were a normal, 650, 700-ish cc bike, it feels so tame, so docile, so friendly, and a lot of reviewers had mentioned that in their reviews of this bike. They said, wow, it's a really friendly bike, and I genuinely didn't believe them. I thought there's no way that a 200 horsepower supercharged naked bike is friendly, but Kawai has played an absolute magic trick here. This bike is genuinely friendly to ride. It's very nice and easy going. If you don't lay into it, this is a motorcycle you can absolutely live with every day of the week. Now, this is a full ride-by-wire system, so as I go down the road here, there's not a lot of tug on the cable. There's no cable on this throttle, right? So when you twist the throttle, it does feel a little artificial, but the fueling is pretty good. I don't notice any snatchiness here. On-off throttle is really nice. And considering the fact that it's a boosted motorcycle, I would have expected a much more snatchy throttle, but it's actually very, very manageable and very nice. The clutch pull is perfect for me. I think the clutch actuation on this motorcycle feels really, really awesome. But to be honest, because it has a up-down quick shifter, you don't really tend to use it that much. Now, just so you guys get a sense of the passing power on this thing, we're in 5th gear. We're gonna get over here to the left lane, just roll into it in 5th. It's absolutely rapid. The coolest part about it is just how much mid-range grunt that it has. This motorcycle produces an absolutely god-smacking amount of torque. 101 foot-pounds at 8,500 RPM, and you really feel it. This feels every bit as torquey as a Hayabusa, a ZX14, any of those bikes, and the experience is amplified by the fact that it's naked. This is not a motorcycle you can do massive top speeds with, and to be honest, unless you're kind of a crazy person, it's a bit irrelevant to be doing 150, 160 miles per hour on the road, right? You have so much wind buffeting, you have so much coming at you when you do that it's not really relevant. So to me, a bike that's comfortable and naked that produces this kind of power is rad. I really, really dig that, and I really like the fact that this bike is so easy to ride. That's the biggest takeaway for me, is just how simple and easy this motorcycle is to ride. Now, I wouldn't recommend that anyone jump on this thing. This is a very powerful motorcycle that is not appropriate for entry-level or intermediate-level motorcyclists. I really think that you should have at least 2.5 or 3 years of experience riding motorcycles before you attempt to perhaps own or ride this machine. This is a serious bike, and if you're not careful, you don't really even notice how fast you're going. Things happen so much faster on these high-powered bikes. But if you put it in rain mode, if you chill on it, if you learn it, if you go at it slowly, you will have so much fun with this thing. And that's the biggest takeaway for me, is this motorcycle is a ton of fun to ride. You would never expect something like this to be this much fun to ride, but it is so fun to chuck this thing around corners, feel how much power it has, feel the torque that it makes. It's so different of an experience than riding a top-of-the-line leader bike. You ride something like an R1, a ZX10, a Gixxer Thou around the street, and, you know, first gear ends at 90 miles per hour, you're so committed, you're fully tucked, you feel like you're never really approaching what that thing can do. However, this bike, oh my god, it feels like you can actually have fun with this thing, which is crazy. You shouldn't be allowed to have fun with a 200 horsepower motorcycle, but you can. It feels absolutely chuckable mid-corner, which I don't know how they've done. Let's get ahead of these cars here. As I mentioned, the Supercharger, although it can seem gimmicky to someone who's never ridden this motorcycle, adds so much to the experience. There is no other motorcycle that gives you the feelings like this thing does. You get off the throttle, you feel the flutter of the Supercharger, you feel the boost kicking in. It is so cool. I am even more excited to turbocharge my Hayabusa after this. As a stupid street bike, this is incredible. Absolutely amazing. I mean, the power on tap is just absolutely idiotic. Whitney, our camera person who helps us make our full production videos you guys see on Thursdays and Fridays, she mentioned that every time this bike flew by her, it sounded like radioactive crickets. The Supercharger sound is really pronounced outside of the motorcycle. I don't know if you guys can hear it on camera right now because it's a stock exhaust and I've got the microphone in my head, in my helmet right here, but it's really, really pronounced. Going slower speeds here, you lay into it in third, always hear that little flutter. It is the coolest thing ever. And it's an experience you don't really get on motorcycles. Motorcycles are not vehicles that are known to have forced induction. It's really rare to even see a forced induction motorcycle, let alone ride one. And for Kawi to have made this is just so cool, you know? Well, let me show you guys something really quick. We're gonna unfortunately squid here a little bit. I don't think anyone's behind me, but watch this in first gear. And the front wheel just constantly lifts, and it's so cool because there's so much cool tech in this thing that it feels totally manageable. It doesn't even feel scary to power wheelie this thing at all. It just feels like it's got your back, you know? It's a very confidence-inspiring motorcycle, and on the side of the tire, it feels great. You have to change the way you ride though. If you ride like a ham-fisted idiot, you're used to riding your 300s or your 650s, and you love getting into wide open throttle, you cannot do that on the ZH2. I cannot stress to you how little you can access the power of this motorcycle on a day-to-day. I've barely given it more than 50% throttle. I don't think I've ever really pinned this bike, to be honest. It feels so insane to get it wide open, and actually doing that on public roads is extremely tough. maybe first and second gear on a freeway entrance if you're lucky, but beyond that, you're going to be at 50% throttle at the very most on this thing, especially doing tighter section twisties and stuff like that. It's crazy. You ride it like you would ride like a boosted car or something. You just lay into the throttle just to hear that supercharger doing its thing. It is so cool. Never thought I'd love a Kawasaki this much, man. Oh my god, I love the ZH2. It's such a sweet ride. This is a motorcycle that we've done. Look, the giveaway bikes that I normally get are beginner bikes, they're intermediate bikes, they're bikes that I've either had a lot of experience with or have ridden before. The expert bikes, you know, the R1, I was like, this would be a fun track toy, but I wouldn't really want to own one. The Panigale V2, I was like, I don't really have a use for this. This has been one of the few bikes that I've purchased as a giveaway that I'm like, I could see myself owning this. 100% could see myself owning this absolutely idiotic motorcycle. It is so sweet, dude. I love this thing. Oh man, this bike's cool. Because I don't really care about top speeds on roads. I don't really care about going super fast on the street. You guys know that. But to have a bike that is so comfortable and so powerful, and to have it make really sweet supercharger whooshing sounds, what else would you want? This is such a cool bike. The only downside is how hideously ugly it is. You can't deny that. It's a very ugly looking motorcycle. But beyond that, gosh, why would you not want one of these? They're so sweet. Constantly hearing that supercharger just flutter away. Bang down a gear here with the quick shifter. Down one. And unlike something like a Hayabusa, this feels so natural and good to ride in corners. It feels really well set up and balanced. This is a sport bike that you can actually use. You don't think you can, but you can. And when you're on it and riding it around, it does not feel like it's 527 pounds. No way. It feels like it's maybe 460 or 470 tops. Now, does it feel like a featherweight, 420 pound MT10 or something like that? No, definitely not. It doesn't feel as lively and nice to handle as an MT10, but few things in this world are, Oh, this bike makes you want to do bad things, dude, I'm telling you. And it picks up the speed like crazy. Third gear here, just squirted a little bit of throttle. Oh, you're going fast. Oh, what a sweet ride, man. What a great bike. I never thought the ZH2 would be one of my favorite bikes that I've ridden, but man, this is such a cool motorcycle. I can't believe how confidence inspiring it is. I can't believe how much power it has. It's just such a complete package for me for a stupid street bike. Yeah, baby! God, what an idiotic bike. It literally just wheelies everywhere. I love this thing. Oh my God, I love the ZH2. Do I have to give it away? Do I really have to give it away? Oh, it's so good. I have not felt this kind of childlike sense of wonder about a bike since I don't know how long, man. I mean, I most of my reviews that I do on these bikes, I try to keep it super professional, above board, I try to tell you guys all the relevant stats and everything and really describe like a professional experience about a motorcycle, but I just don't want to do that with this thing. I just want to provide you guys with just the feedback of riding it, which is absolutely idiotic. But here's the thing, like, look, we're in these more tighter sections here, somewhere where I'd never take a Busa. I would not feel comfortable taking a Hayabusa out here. And yet on the ZH2, keep it in third, light on the gas, you can have a ton of fun with this thing. And it's got so much grunt! Oh my God, it's got so much grunt. Oh, it's so good. I thought I was over bikes like this, guys. I genuinely did. I mean, we had the R1, the V2, the Hayabusa. I was like, nah, I love my Scrambler. I love more easygoing motorcycles. There's no reason to have so much power on the street. I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. Let's do a quick poll here because, well, I guess we're just squidding today, aren't we? rush! Oh my god! What a rush! Oh, what a good bike. Absolute adrenaline. That's all it is. It's just stupid adrenaline. It feels like you own your own personal roller coaster. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, third gear, 90 miles per hour, the front wheel is just lifting. Come on, man. Come on, where else can you get that? And again, it has such a dual nature to it. You cruise around here, fourth gear, you're not laying to the power. This basically feels like your everyday normal naked bike. It's so cool. One of the major downsides, obviously, with owning a supercharged motorcycle is fuel consumption. As you can tell, this motorcycle has on the odometer 181 miles that I've had on it since I got it, which is a lot for a giveaway bike that ostensibly I'm meant to just do like videos with, but I have taken this thing out on a few personal rides. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I very much enjoy riding this thing. And you know, I've already filled it up I think 3 times because you can't ride this thing and not get into the gas even a little bit. It's so addictive to fuel boost. It is so fun to feel this thing kick in and give you power, because it makes power like very little other motorcycles I have ever ridden in my life. The only thing that comes close to the ridiculous kind of power this thing makes is the Hayabusa. But again, it's because of the torque. The R1 obviously makes about as much peak horsepower at this thing, but it makes it in a completely different way. It revs out to 14,500 RPM. You gotta wind up the gears, and it's really fast. But this is fun to ride. I can be on this thing all day long and have an absolute blast. Unlike the R1, where I ride it for 45 minutes, and I wanna get the hell off the thing, because I'm not at the racetrack. I am on the street, just chilling. I'm going in 4th gear, laying into the throttle. Oh, what a good bike. We'll go here through this twistier section. It's really balanced, really composed in a way you wouldn't expect this bike to be. It's so awesome, man. Playful even, one could say. How did they do it? How did they make it playful? Oh man, it's so good. So, as you guys can tell, the ZH2 is more than perfectly capable of conquering highway, twisty road riding, all that kind of stuff. But I want to get it out into the city and show you guys that this machine is so capable for the everyday ride. So let's cut over to the city right now. And just like that, folks, we are now in the city, cruising on the ZH2, testing its manners in slow speeds. How does a 200 horsepower supercharged 998cc four-sail feel when just bopping around the city? And I gotta tell you, it's like I said to you before, this bike is comfortable. It's easy to ride. You would not think that this is some ridiculously powerful sport bike when you're just cruising around the city like this. It doesn't feel any crazier than a Z650 or something like that. The great thing about what they've done with this bike, and you can tell with all the wires coming out of the throttle over here, is it's tuned extremely well for slow speeds. I'm cruising here in 1st gear, and I really don't feel like it's going to get away from me at all. Now, granted, I'm a pretty experienced rider, and so I've got a good throttle hand, but even in the hands of someone a little bit more ham-fisted, this thing feels very simple to ride in the slow speeds kind of stuff. We'll dodge some manholes right here just in case, just to show you guys. Very amenable bike, very easy going, easy to balance in slow speeds as well. The other thing I'd like to point out is that, if you had to lane split with this thing, which we cannot do here in Texas because it is not legal to do so, but if you had to, I don't think it would be too tough doing it on this bike. Even though it is kind of a thicker boy here, the width of the handlebars is actually not that wide, and so this would actually be much simpler to lane split than some big ADV or something like that. But we'll go over here in this parking lot and I'll show you some slow speed stuff with this motorcycle. Again, a very easygoing ride, super simple to maneuver around in slow speeds. Intuitive is the word I would use, and that's a very flattering word for the Z6. I almost called it a Z650. Jesus, ZH2 here. But yeah, it's very flattering. It's very, it makes you feel like $1,000,000. Doing slow speed stuff is awesome with it. I'll show you guys right over here in this section. We'll do some quick U-turns and all that kind of stuff. Much easier and amenable to ride than a leader bike, for example. All comes down to those ergonomics, man. All comes down to the handlebars being a little bit taller, a little bit easier, and anytime you want, you twist the wick, you got 197 supercharged horsepower to play with. It is absolutely ridiculous how much torque this thing puts down. One thing I like about this bike is the on-off throttle feel. That's always super important when you are doing slow speed stuff in a city or commuting or doing, you know, traffic, normal riding on something like this. You know, the on-off throttle is very gentle. It's not a really abrupt, snatchy thing like I mentioned. The clutch pull, you know, it's a little stiffer than I would like. It is a hydraulic clutch, which is nice, so that does help it a little bit. But being that it is a pretty beefy engine and a pretty beefy amount of power, this clutch is still pretty substantial. I'm sure the spring rates are pretty strong on that clutch, and so the pull is a little bit heavier than I would personally like on a bike that I'd have to feather constantly. But the good thing is, again, it's just for first gear, because everywhere else you can use the quick shifter, and this bike just simply works. The thing that's really cool about this motorcycle is that it really doesn't feel like you're riding some sort of caged bear like with the Hayabusa. I think with bikes like that, it really does feel like it's just this absolutely ridiculous kind of motorcycle, but it's really not the case with the ZH2. You know, it's actually very simple to maneuver it around. It doesn't feel hairy to ride. It doesn't feel anything like that. As you can see here, we can bang very tight speed stuff here, no problem. U-turn, all that kind of good stuff. Just chilling on this bike, you know. It's a really easy going ride, which is not something you would ever think to say about a motorcycle like this. But it is pretty easy going, you know, it's pretty chill. And the thing that I take away from it is it's genuinely enjoyable to ride. That's the big difference between something like this and a Hayabusa or a R1 or something like that. This thing is genuinely enjoyable as a street motorcycle. It does not feel compromised in the same way that an R1 or a Hayabusa feels like, because it's not really intended to do super top speeds. It's not intended to rip around a racetrack. It was designed and thought of as a street bike, and so in these applications, it works really, really well. As it should be no surprise to you guys. It's a street bike first and foremost, and it just ends up working super well in this configuration. So that's all the thoughts I had about the ZH2, guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got tons more H2 content coming out. Tomorrow is going to be Spite's first ride, his very first ride on this bike. I'm super excited to get him aboard this thing and see what he thinks, because I am head over heels with this motorcycle, as I told you guys. And thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
Bummer for you, my little squid. This video is actually over, but lucky for you, there's plenty of other Yammie videos you can check out right over here. What's gonna happen to them? I don't know. I haven't seen them, but you can watch them right now.